Calibrachoa, or Superbells in this case, can be one of the most beautiful plants that you can have in your garden, especially in a hanging basket like this. Now, we're here in Southern California, so our annuals will typically last more than 1 year, but in most areas of the country, they are an annual, but even then, they'll need to be trimmed back either in the early summer or late summer, depending on their growth habit. So in this case, it's been growing pretty much all year. I planted this last spring, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trim this back so that we can see how easy this is and how beneficial it can be to your plants. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to use and how easy this process can be. So really, this could not be easier to trim back. In fact, today I'm going to use my Felco 2s, which are super reliable, but these may even be a little bit of an overkill because the branching is not very thick on these. They're kind of tender, so it shouldn't be a problem. They should handle it just fine. You could use a pair of snips that you could easily purchase from Lowe's, Home Depot, Amazon. I've even seen them at the Dollar Tree, and I've used ones from the Dollar Tree, and they work just fine. They may not last a super long time, but they do the trick, so you might want to check into that. Anyways, as you can tell, this thing has done very well for January here in Southern California. It's looking amazing, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim it more than they recommend them to be trimmed back, just by a little bit. I'm going to actually take it all the way up to the top of the hanging basket. The cool thing about doing this is that anytime you trim back, you stimulate growth, and heading into the spring, it's really the perfect time to do that because you're going to want the most branching and the most robust growth habit that you can possibly get. This way, it doesn't start off like this and end up even more leggy. It's not too leggy, it's pretty thick. And one of the things I love about this variety in particular is that its growth habit is very dense and full of blooms all the time. It's blooming right now, definitely, but in the spring, after I trim it back, I'm sure it's going to be completely covered in blooms and all with new growth, hopefully. So I'm going to go ahead and start trimming it right now. I'm just going to take my clippers and I'm going to find where the top portion or the top rim of the hanging basket is located and kind of put my finger there. And I'm going to go probably about an inch underneath that, and then I'm going to start snipping, okay? And it's super, super simple. And once I get this started, you're going to see exactly what that's going to look like. You can see how far I'm going to take that up. It seems super severe, but I'm telling you, these things are so hardy. They come back so well, especially if you have Calibrachoa that are from the Proven Winners line. They are definitely a lot stronger, in my opinion, than plants that are non-branded that you can find anywhere, which I've planted plenty of those before in the past, but they don't do as well as these plants do, the ones from Proven Winners, because they're definitely engineered to be hardy and do super well in your garden, and they absolutely respond amazingly when you trim them back. So I know it just seems like, wow, you're cutting all those blooms off, but you know, in the end, it's going to be just fine. And I can tell right now that there's just a little bit of like moisture under here because we've had a little bit of rain here in January. We're supposed to get a lot more very soon. So this is going to be great because this is going to increase the airflow on the bottom. In my opinion, sometimes when we have these plants in our garden longer than a season, especially if they go through the winter, you can get a little bit of moisture that kind of sets in there, and then that can kind of mildew and it can cause damage to the plant. You don't want to get any kind of mold growing on the plant. So this is definitely going to not only stimulate growth from trimming it back, but it's going to increase airflow, which will in turn lead to a stronger, more robust plant. So it's pretty simple. I'm just kind of following that line that I started, going an inch underneath the rim of the hanging basket. And it could be easier than that. None of these branches are super difficult to trim off. So I'm just going to continue with that, and I'm going to look at it afterwards. Now, you can kind of tell here that underneath the green, there's a little bit of dead that needs to be cut off anyway. So by doing this, you're getting rid of all of that, which will help get rid of some of that moisture that's sitting there against the basket. So let's go ahead and continue with that process, and you can kind of see here what that's going to look like. I might come back and trim this off once I see what the top looks like. But yeah, these are great. This hanging basket right here is one of the items that I had ordered last year from Kensington garden supply. And honestly, I definitely would recommend it simply because the reservoir for the soil is so large that the plants seem to be doing a lot better than the typical ones that I could find, or the hanging baskets that I had been purchasing from Lowe's, which are a lot more shallow. It doesn't allow for as much root growth, and I think that's really important to have as much root space as possible. And when you have hanging baskets too, like I've said before, a lot of the times they can leach out moisture and dry out, and then that's going to be, you know, something hard to kind of manage if you had a lot of weather that was hot and they dry out quickly. So this helps with moisture control as well. So I'm going to keep continuing that around the corner here, and we'll see how different this looks. All right, getting all of that dead undergrowth. You can see that right there. This is all moist in here. And if that continues to be moist, especially with a lot of rain, it's just going to mildew and then cause disease. And, you know, that's not good for any plant, obviously. So keep going through there. And I'm not really doing anything but turning this thing. I don't have to climb up here or anything. I'm just going in there. Yeah, this is really moist in here. And so that all has to come off. So that's just going to help everything. All right, almost there. Almost there. Perfect. See, this is pretty simple. Now, Proven Winners, the website, recommends that when you do trim these back, that you trim only to about a third of what the plant was. But obviously, I'm going way more than that right now. But it's not going to get hot anytime soon. It's not going to zap this plant anytime soon. So I can tell that the under part of this is super healthy. Now the top portion of this plant also is very healthy, so it has plenty of room to really develop and kind of sprout out. So here we go. All right, so let's take a look at that and see how that looks. I left some hanging off the side, and I think that is absolutely perfect. You still have some growth hanging over, so it doesn't seem so severe. But I think that's going to be great. All right, it couldn't be easier than that. I went ahead and lifted up all of these branches that are hanging over just a little bit to make sure that I got all of the dead underneath, to clear that out for airflow. And that's basically it. I didn't really even move from this spot. It was easy with my shears or my clippers, and this is just going to become beautiful throughout the spring as it fills full of blooms, I'm sure. I'll keep you posted on that. Now, if you're wondering what variety this beautiful specimen of a plant is, it's the Superbells Pink Lemonade Magic from Proven Winners. And a couple weeks ago, I did a video on my favorite annuals from last season. So if you stick around to the end, go ahead and click on this video right here for more information on this and more amazing plants for your garden. Thank you guys for watching today. We hope you enjoyed today's video, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye, everybody.